Our first speakers, Ariel Desjardins and Francois Savard. They are from Montreal. They met in an outdoor-focused high school a while ago, but they are still related to this school because their teacher, outdoor teacher, is there today, and with one of the students too. They are just back from a 2 weeks winter camping trip, and they just never stop. Francois was telling me he's going to a big trip in Nepal soon. And about Montreal, you know, I learned recently in Montreal, there are some high-tech companies who are making part of the Marvel movies, you know, the superhero movies. And watching their image makes me feel like watching a marvelous movie. So let's start with my super countrymen.
Test. Check. All right. Let's go. It is really an honor for us to be here today. I have to admit, to be the next conference after Michael and Frank is a bit intimidating. We feel like boys amongst men.
Wow, that's a lot of paddlers. Huh? As Sylvain introduced me, I'm the eyes, the hands, and sometimes the legs need to run to capture photos and video of our adventures. My first language is French, my second are my images, and English come as third. I may mess up Shakespeare's language, but you still have my images to understand. For me, our expedition was an opportunity to illustrate and share the expedition from the inside.
For me, Expedition Équivoque was not about canoeing and adventure. It was about sharing my dream with the people I love and with anyone who was interested in following us. In fact, that is where the name comes from. Équivoque is an Inuktitut word meaning come aboard. Francois and I are part of a crew of 6 friends from Montreal and Quebec who are used to paddle together. We have been exploring all the major southern rivers of Quebec for the past 15 years. And 7 years ago, our gaze fell on Quebec's great North Rivers. In 2011, we first started by the beautiful and pristine Kowak River in the Torngat Range, immediately followed by the bouncing Moisy in the same summer. We slowed down on the Brokeback the year after. Meanwhile, our thirst of northern expedition grew, and we decided to paddle the mighty George River in 2013. We then ventured out of our beloved natal province in 2015 to explore the spectacular mountain river in the Northwest Territories. This is also where I made my first map. I have always had a passion for maps, and it is that passion that fueled my dream of paddling an uncharted river. It is on that trip that we decided to embark on the biggest adventure of our lives. The trip wasn't ended, that we already were talking about the next one. When we came back in Montreal, we pored over maps in the quest of an uncharted river. And this is where we discovered the Lestage River in the Ingova Peninsula. Our plan was to link the Pingalwit National Park and the village of Kangersuk. On the map, you can also see the village of Selwit and Kuujjuaq that would come into play later. This small but sizable river was nested between 2 giants, the Vachon and the Lepelle rivers. To access it, we had to charter a plane from Kuujjuaq to Lake Manarsudik that is right next to the Pingalwit crater in the park bearing the same name. Then we would have to paddle the beginning of the Vachon River and cross over in a 10-kilometer portage to Lake Nantes that empties in the Arpaliptuk River. As you may know, this trip has been done once in '88 by Michael Peake. It was one of the trips that he spoke yesterday about. If you don't remember it, this is the one that started on ice. At this point, they headed west. Our routes would differ from theirs. At the end of the Arpaliptuk River, we would portage again 6 kilometers to reach the headwater of the Lestage River. Then this river flows on 180 kilometers before reaching the Vachon, that finally empty itself in the Plain River. From this point, 70 kilometers are left to reach Kangersuk.
All of you know how important it is to have good equipment during such an adventure. Conditions are difficult, use is very specific, and the weight and space are limited. For all those reasons, a few years ago, we started making some of our gear. We are very lucky to have Raphael as a paddling teammate. He's working as industrial designer, and he's passionate about outdoor gear. Our first project was the one called Ungavatar, this one. A mosquito shelter we create for our Cork adventure. A few years later, on the Ekivook expedition, we traveled once again with this shelter that we improve every year. We aren't as crazy as Frank Wolf. We don't like sharing our dinner with a herd of mosquitoes. Another important part of the gear is our spray deck. We also start making our own for Cork trip. Our design is light, with quick luggage access and a Velcro attaching system. In every expedition preparation, we are learning, searching, discovering new materials and technique. We always develop new ideas and question the latest. An interesting part of our logistic for this trip was the shipment of our canoe. We had a great opportunity to send our canoe by plane to the village of Saluit during the winter. At the end of April 2017, we went there to accomplish a skidoo expedition. We attached our canoe on a chamutik, a traditional Inuit sled, and pulled them to the Pingalwit National Park. At the village, we made the encounter of Paolusi Tayara, an experimented Inuk hunter, which guided us through the vast tundra. We followed the course marked by the green line, and it took us 10 hours to reach our destination. We had a great night of winter camping at the park and came back the next day. It was cold. It was a bumpy ride, but it was fantastic. Everything around us was white and frozen, keeping in mind that a few months later, we'll come back and paddle this territory. It was a crazy thing. In the next video, I'm presenting a recap of this trip. Let's travel to Saluit.
On July 10th, we chartered a plane from Kuujjuaq to Pingalwit National Park. The view was absolutely amazing, and the pilot was kind enough to fly over the entire length of the Lestage for us to scout our upcoming trip. This photo was taken on the famous crater Michael talked about. We spent 2 days roaming around it. The Inuit Park warden shared their culture with us. We ate dry beluga meat, mock duck, which is beluga skin and blubber, beluga sausage inside walrus bowels, and also dried Arctic char. The boys liked everything, but the girls didn't find it as palatable as us. Even though we enjoyed ourselves, we were looking forward to start our expedition. So on July 12th, we left our newly made friends for the first part of the adventure.
As preparation, we made a lot of research and talk with paddlers who experiment the region before. They all mentioned that the beginning of the Vachon River can be very rocky and that we have to paddle during the spring flood. The park warden told us that a very small amount of snow fell during winter and the flood occurred exceptionally early this year. So the water level was pretty low. The result is that our progression was very slow, more than expected. In the first 3 days, we had 16 rapids with no water. Often we portage, others we drag, and sometimes we carry over our fully loaded 300-pound canoe. We argue about what was the most efficient tactic. But even now, we still don't know. The first 14 days were under rain, hail, snow, and strong winds. In those conditions, I can tell you, it's hard to produce solar power. It was certainly one of my struggles with all my electronic devices. Let me tell you that it's hard for humans also. The climatic difficulties added to the lack of water and to front winds on enormous lakes require a lot of human energy. Then followed a highly anticipated moment. We planned to portage from Vachon River to Lac Nantais. It took 3 days to accomplish this portage. Keep in mind that we carry all our food, fuel, photo, video, drone, and solar energy equipment, alcohol, which is essential for healing, and some luxury items like tent, sleeping bag, medical gear, communication device, more. We also had the great idea to carry a whole prosciutto, half a pig leg, as a present for Elise's birthday, which came after the portage.
1, 2, 3. OK, bon.
Fait que 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ouais, une dizaine de kilos. 10 kilos, ça fait 5 heures. 5 heures pour un aller.
Fait qu'on a fait un vol d'oiseau 4,46 km à matin. C'est bon, là?
1, 2, 3, go! On voit le ruisseau! Puis en plus, il y a de l'eau dedans! OK? 1, 2, 3, go! Oh là!
J'ai plus de force dans les bras.
3 semaines post-dislocation de... C'est bon, lui? Ouais.
Vas-y.
Difficile. Ouais. Là, je me sens vraiment bien. Là.
Victoire!
Oh my God, c'est donc tough. On l'a fait, je suis content.
Je croyais des fois j'y croyais plus. C'est quand même vraiment cool de voir qu'il y a de l'eau devant nous. Pour l'instant, c'est juste arrêter d'avoir mal. Pour l'instant, c'est ça. Mais j'imagine, je sens le sentiment d'accomplissement qui est sur le bord de s'en venir, là. Pour l'instant, c'est juste penser nos blessures, profiter du soleil, refaire un peu notre énergie, puis partir la deuxième partie de l'aventure demain matin. Là, je pense que quand on va pagayer sur de l'eau, là, on va avoir un sentiment d'accomplissement.
Then came the Arpaliptuk River. The only information we had about it were taken from the Shimun article of '88, written by Michael Peake. Sadly, we weren't able to speak to him. It is a coincidence that he talked about this trip yesterday, 30 years after. In the previous months, before our departure, I've dreamt of this river. The words of the article kept echoing in my mind. I will read an excerpt of Michael's words to share the feeling I had. The Arpaliptuk is an all-business river. During its relatively short 10-mile course to Klotz Lake, it drops over 400 feet to Klotz 800-foot elevation, steep by anyone's standards. 40-foot stone and snow banks line the rapid river as it veers steeply down and away. The roller coaster kept going, and we were able to run a mile plus before the lake expansion, a bit more than halfway to Klotz and 280 feet gone. The mental effort required to do a river like this is considerable, so we were happy with our mileage for the day. Following a day off for bad weather, we resumed the ride and the river got even steeper. The scouting view was alarming. The river disappeared downhill very fast and all white. It would have been ideal for expert kayakers in less remote conditions with grade 4 and 5 water all the way. We lined. The final mile to Klotz was the toughest yet, with a narrow section that required the fast treading of the boat beside a huge standing wave. Though I don't imagine many canoeists adventure this way, few barren rivers have this much drop and flow. So finally, my dream came true and the exciting part started. The river started to narrow, slopes increased, and the water speeded up. We were pretty excited to encounter our first rapid. The water level must have been a little bit lower because we were able to shoot all the rapids except one that we lined. The rapids were almost continuous. We encountered huge standing wave, boulders to sneak in between, and furious hydraulics. On July 21st, we were a little bit more than halfway through the Arpaliptuk, and we faced a big dilemma. Our first choice, in red, was to start another portage towards the Lestage River, and we anticipated to be as grueling as the other one. But the portage was only the first obstacle. We would start on a new river with possibly as much low water as we experienced on the headwater of the Vachon. From what we saw in our charter flight, we would encounter many other meagers, rapid with no water. The second option in white was to cross the giant Lake Klotz. We faced strong wind in the past 10 days, and we didn't want to take the chance of being windbound and lose time since we were already 80 kilometers behind schedule. This option also added 40 kilometers to our trip. If we choose this option, we would travel down the north branch of the Lepelle River after crossing Lake Klotz, and this branch would also be a first modern canoe descent. We were really puzzled by this decision since there was so many unknowns and unpredictable variables in both scenarios. After an hour-long discussion on the water, we decided to set camp and talk about it in the evening. After more discussion, we agreed to choose Plan B and change our initial plan. Luckily, I brought a second set of maps that covered this option. After 14 days of bad weather, we were blessed for the first time, and the 2 days of crossing Lake Klotz were almost wind-free and with a beautiful sun. For the rest of the trip, the rapid mellowed with a long stretch of swift Class 1 and 2 rapids and occasional Class 3. By long stretch, I mean 10-kilometer stretch, and the Lepelle offered us many stretches like that. The pace of the trip changed. We were able to make good progress in much less time, to catch up on our schedule. It was time for us to relax a bit.
Facing those obstacles was physically hard and sometimes psychologically too. But the stronger feeling was the fact of being privileged. Very few people have walked this land, paddled those waves, and admired those hills. Let me bring you back during our first breakfast on the river. The 6 of us were sitting under our Ungava tarp. The previous night wasn't a good one for anyone. The strong rustling sound of the wind and the patter of the rain that struck the tent took the place of snoring rhythm. Coffee was hot and good. Our eyes were still crusted, and we were seeing moving mountains. Those were not mountains. We were surrounded by thousands of caribous. They went down the mountains, crossed the river, and disappeared into the tundra. These representatives of the Leaf River herd escorted us for weeks until our canoe met salt water. Knowing that the Leaf River herd population dropped by 54% in the last 5 years made us feel extremely privileged to spend time observing and being observed by caribou. This nature is beautiful. Light and scar are unique. The landscape evolved with the progress of the expedition. We start with rocks, lots of rocks, only rocks on the horizon. Then appear moss. The first time we saw shrub was a celebration. Fuel restriction was over with the new possibility of using our twin stove. This project was a group's one. We faced difficulty and enjoy beauties as a group. Moving forward as a team makes us stronger than 6 human beings. The collective decision of taking another route is a good representation of our trip. Working together and constantly adapting to this unique environment. Sometimes nature is stronger than you, and you need to have the humility to go with the flow. We discover rivers and lakes, but more essentially, living this challenge in such isolated area made us connect with people in a way that we cannot imagine in our daily life. No mask can hold in those conditions. You can hide who you are. 2 years of preparation has made us close, but 26 days in the unknown merge us.
Finally, on August 3rd, after being windbound for 2 days, only 25 kilometers away from Kangesuk, we left at 6 in the morning to catch the descending tide and arrived just before noon. A strange mix of proudness, sadness, and joy all filled our hearts. We finally made it. A couple of weeks later, reflecting back on our adventure, everybody agreed that this was the hardest thing they have done, but probably the most rewarding as well. And knowing what we know now, everybody say that they would do it again. Since sharing our story is part of our mission, I'm super glad to be here today, and I would like to thank Alex for the opportunity of the presentation, and thank to you guys for taking the time to listen to our story. If you like our visual media or you'd like to learn more about our expedition, you can follow us and have a look in our previous posts on Facebook and Instagram. You can also follow Francois' work on his social media account. We have magazine articles to be published soon. We are also working on a full-length documentary about our expedition. Follow us if you would like to know more about it. Again, thanks a lot.